So I've been doing a lot of research into old Hollywood lately, and I mean a lot. Court documents, declassified FBI files, contemporary newspaper accounts, biographies written by people who were actually there. The kind of research that starts at 9 in the morning and suddenly it's 2 in the morning and you're reading a 1924 inquest report and you can't quite believe what you're holding. Because here's the thing about the golden age of Hollywood that I keep coming back to. The glamour was real. The talent was real. The films were genuinely extraordinary. But underneath all of it, underneath the publicity photographs and the studio narratives and the carefully managed press relationships, there was a machinery of concealment operating with a consistency and an efficiency that, the more you look at it, the more remarkable it becomes. These people were very, very good at burying things. Some of what they buried stayed buried for decades. Some of it has only come out recently. Some of it, and I want to be honest with you about this, is still not fully resolved. Today we're going to go through 8 of the biggest, the darkest, and the most consequential things that old Hollywood buried. Some of them you'll know. Some of them you'll think you know. But I promise the full story is considerably stranger than the version that made it to the history books. So sit back, grab a cup of tea. This is going to take about an hour, and I want to start at the very beginning with the case that, more than any other, showed Hollywood what it was capable of when it decided someone needed to disappear. In 1921, Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was one of the most famous entertainers in the world. I want to start there because it matters. He was not a minor figure. He was not someone on the edges of the industry. He was, by 1921, one of the highest paid performers in Hollywood. Paramount had signed him to a $3 million contract the previous year, which in 1920 dollars was an almost incomprehensible amount of money. He was beloved. He was everywhere. His films made millions. On September 5, 1921, Arbuckle hosted a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. It was Labor Day weekend. The party lasted 3 days. At some point during the party, a young actress named Virginia Rapp became seriously ill. She died 4 days later of peritonitis, a ruptured bladder. A woman named Maud Delmont, who had not been present when Rapp became ill, who had a documented history of blackmail and fraud, and who would later be described by the prosecutor himself as a thoroughly corrupt witness, told police that Arbuckle had sexually assaulted Rapp. Arbuckle was arrested and charged with manslaughter. Here is what happened next, and this is the part that I find genuinely extraordinary. The press, particularly William Randolph Hearst's newspaper chain, which understood that scandal sold papers in ways that Quiet Truth did not, ran with the story with an intensity that was, by the standards of even that era, remarkable. The accusations were printed as fact. The details grew with each retelling. By the time the case went to trial, a significant portion of the American public had already decided that Roscoe Arbuckle was guilty. He was tried 3 times. The first trial ended in a hung jury, 10 jurors for acquittal, 2 for conviction. The second trial ended in another hung jury, this time 9 for conviction, 3 for acquittal. The third trial ended in acquittal, and not just acquittal, but something considerably more unusual. The jury issued a formal written statement. They wrote, "Acquittal is not enough for Roscoe Arbuckle. We feel that a great injustice has been done to him. We also feel that it was only our plain duty to give him this exoneration. There was not the slightest proof adduced to connect him in any way with the commission of a crime. Not the slightest proof. The jury did not just find him not guilty. They wrote a statement saying the prosecution had presented no evidence whatsoever. It did not matter. Will Hayes, the head of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, the organization that the studios had created specifically to manage their public image, banned Arbuckle from the screen. Not pending further legal proceedings, not conditionally. Banned, a man who had been formally acquitted, whose jury had issued a statement calling his prosecution unjust, was banned from his profession. The ban was eventually lifted about a year later. By then, the damage was done. The audience that had loved Roscoe Arbuckle had been told, repeatedly and loudly, that he was a monster. The industry that had paid him $3 million decided it was more convenient to sacrifice him than to stand behind the acquittal. He died in 1933. He was 46 years old. He had, in the final years of his life, been working under a pseudonym, William Goodrich, because his own name was too damaged to put on a picture. The woman who made the original accusation, Maud Delmont, was never charged with making false statements. She went on to make similar accusations against other men. The Arbuckle case taught Hollywood something important, that the machinery of public opinion was more powerful than the machinery of justice, and that the studio system could use both. The lesson was not forgotten. 3 years later, it was applied again, this time on a boat. On November 16, 1924, a group of Hollywood's most powerful figures boarded William Randolph Hearst's yacht, the Oneida, for a weekend cruise off the coast of Southern California. The guest list included Charlie Chaplin, actress Marion Davies, Hearst's companion, and Thomas Ince, one of the most significant film producers of the early Hollywood era. Ince had, essentially, invented the studio system as a production model. The way Hollywood organized the making of films in 1924 was largely his design. Thomas Ince left the yacht on November 19th. He died 2 days later. The official cause of death was heart failure, attributed to acute indigestion, and he was 42 years old. Here is where it gets complicated. Contemporary newspaper accounts, including, initially, some of Hearst's own papers, reported that Ince had been shot, not suffered a heart attack. Shot. The initial reporting described a gunshot wound to the head. Then, very quickly, the story changed. The heart failure narrative replaced the shooting narrative. The investigation, such as it was, closed rapidly. No inquest was held. The body was cremated before a proper examination could be conducted. The theory that has persisted, documented in biographies, discussed in film histories, never definitively proven or disproven, is this. Hearst believed that Charlie Chaplin and Marion Davies were having an affair. He brought a gun onto the yacht, in the dark, on the deck of the boat. He shot the wrong man. He shot Thomas Ince when he meant to shoot Charlie Chaplin. There is no smoking gun in this case. There is no document that confirms it. What there is, a suspicious official narrative that changed very quickly, a cremation that prevented thorough examination, a district attorney who declined to investigate despite the initial shooting reports, and a pattern of behavior from Hearst's media empire that looks, in retrospect, very much like a powerful man using his press connections to bury a story. Chaplin was on that yacht. He left very quickly after Ince did. He almost never spoke about the incident for the rest of his life. When he did, his accounts were vague and inconsistent in ways that people who study this case find significant. Marion Davies was on that yacht. She also did not speak about it. She and Hearst remained together for the rest of his life. Thomas Ince left a wife and 3 children. He was 42 years old. He may have died of a heart attack. He may have been shot by mistake by the most powerful media mogul in America. We do not know. The people who were there made sure of that. Paul Byrne died on September 5th, 1932, 2 months after his wedding to Jean Harlow. He was found dead in his home with a gunshot wound to the head. A note was found nearby. The death was ruled a suicide. Here is what I want to tell you about this case that the official record does not fully capture. MGM's fixers arrived at Paul Byrne's house before the police did. Not shortly after, before. The studio's head of publicity, Howard Strickling, and a fixer named Whitey Hendry were at the scene, in the house, before the official investigation began. By the time the Los Angeles Police Department arrived, the scene had been in the custody of MGM for some period of time. The note that was found, and that was used to support the suicide narrative, has been the subject of considerable analysis over the years. Its authenticity has been questioned, its meaning has been debated. What it says, taken at face value, is ambiguous enough to support multiple interpretations. The story that MGM told, and that the cooperative press repeated, was that Paul Byrne had killed himself because he was sexually inadequate and could not satisfy Jean Harlow. This story was told publicly, with Harlow's name attached to it, about a marriage that had lasted 2 months. Harlow later disputed this story explicitly and publicly. The studio released it anyway. Jean Harlow had no power to stop them. She was under contract. Her image was theirs. There is a second theory, documented by biographer E.J. Fleming, among others, involving a woman named Dorothy Millette, who had a prior relationship with Byrne and who drowned in the Sacramento River the day after his death. The circumstances of her death were also ruled a suicide. 2 deaths, 2 suicides, 1 day apart. MGM's people in the house before the police. I'm not telling you that Paul Byrne was murdered. What I'm telling you is that the official narrative was constructed by people with an enormous financial interest in a particular version of events, that they had access to the scene before investigators did, and that the story they told made a dead man's name into a source of humiliation for the woman he had married. Jean Harlow died 5 years later, at 26. She never fully recovered from what the studio had done to her name in the weeks after Paul Byrne's death. Louis B. Mayer ran MGM from 1924 to 1951, 27 years. In that time, he was the most powerful individual in the most powerful studio in the most powerful entertainment industry in the world. He had absolute authority over the careers, the images, the personal lives, and in significant ways, the medical care of the performers under his contract. He exercised that authority with a comprehensiveness that, the more you read about it, the more difficult it is to find an adequate word for. The documented accounts of Mayer's behavior toward women under his contract are extensive. They come from multiple sources, across multiple decades, and they are consistent enough in their specifics to constitute a pattern rather than a collection of individual incidents. He called Judy Garland a fat little pig in pigtails. She was 14 years old. He said it in front of other people. He said it in front of her. He put 16-year-old Judy Garland on amphetamines. The studio doctors he employed, paid by MGM, answerable to MGM, gave a teenage girl Benzedrine to suppress her appetite and keep her performing through 16-hour shooting days. This was not a secret within the studio. It was a policy. The casting couch, the specific predatory exchange of professional advancement for sexual compliance, was, by the accounts of people who worked at MGM, not an aberration. It was an understood feature of the environment. Women who were under contract, who needed their contracts renewed, who wanted better roles, who were dependent on the studio's goodwill for their livelihoods, operated inside a system in which the most powerful man in the building had made his own desires a condition of employment. These are not allegations from anonymous sources. They are documented in the memoirs of people who were there, in the accounts of biographers who interviewed dozens of witnesses, in the legal and medical records that have come to light over decades. What is also documented is how effectively this was managed at the time. The studio's publicity apparatus, its relationships with the press, its financial power over the journalists and columnists who covered Hollywood. All of these things worked together to ensure that what was happening inside MGM did not appear in print. Louis B. Mayer died in 1957. He was 67 years old. He died in his own bed, with his legacy intact and his name on a studio. The women who worked under him are the ones who paid the ongoing cost. I want to tell you something about Hedy Lamarr that Hollywood absolutely did not want you to know. She was one of the most brilliant technical minds of the 20th century. Hedy Lamarr was born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler in Vienna in 1914. She came to Hollywood in the late 1930s, signed with MGM, and became one of the studio's biggest stars. Described at various points as the most beautiful woman in the world, she was also, in her private life, engaged in serious scientific thinking about a problem that the United States government was actively trying to solve. The problem was torpedo guidance. Early radio-controlled torpedoes could be jammed. The enemy could detect the radio frequency being used to guide the torpedo and broadcast interference on the same frequency, causing the torpedo to go off course. Lamarr, working with composer George Antheil, developed a solution. Frequency hopping, instead of transmitting on a single frequency, the guidance signal would hop rapidly between frequencies in a pattern known only to the transmitter and receiver. The signal could not be jammed because it could not be reliably located. They patented it in 1942. Patent number 2,292,387. Filed under Hedy Kiesler Markey, her married name at the time. The United States Navy expressed interest and then did nothing with it during the war. When the patent expired in 1959, the technology was adopted, and it became foundational to what we now call spread-spectrum communication, GPS, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. The wireless technology that the entire modern world runs on is built, in significant part, on a principle that Hedy Lamarr patented in 1942. She received no royalties. The patent had expired. Hollywood knew she was brilliant. Hollywood was not interested in brilliant. Hollywood was interested in the face, the body, the specific commercial product that those things represented. The woman who had helped develop the technological foundation of modern wireless communication was promoted as the most beautiful woman in the world and cast in roles that asked nothing of her intellect. She received a belated recognition in 1997. The Electronic Frontier Foundation gave her an award acknowledging her contribution to the technology. She was 82 years old. She died in 2000. Her name is on a patent that changed the world. It is not on the technology the patent made possible. Jean Seberg was from Marshalltown, Iowa. She was discovered by Otto Preminger, made breathless with Godard, became the face of the French New Wave. You probably remember her from that. What you probably don't know is what the FBI did to her. In 1970, Jean Seberg was 9 months pregnant. The FBI, and I want to be very clear that this is documented in their own declassified internal memos, not in speculation or allegation, the FBI planted a story in the press saying that the father of her unborn child was a member of the Black Panther Party. It was a lie. Fabricated, planted by bureau agents who knew it was false. The story ran in the Los Angeles Times. Newsweek picked it up. Jean Seberg, 9 months pregnant, read about herself in the newspaper. She went into premature labor. Her daughter was born 2 days later and died within 2 days of birth. Seberg held an open casket funeral to prove to the world that her child was white. She never recovered. Multiple suicide attempts, psychiatric hospitalizations. Her career collapsed. She was found dead in Paris in September 1979. She'd been missing for 10 days. She was 40 years old. The FBI's own internal document, made public after her death, described the operation explicitly. It noted that the planted story might cause her embarrassment and serve to cheapen her image with the general public. Embarrassment, that was the word. The Los Angeles Times apologized for running the story. The FBI faced no consequences. Natalie Wood drowned off the coast of Catalina Island on the night of November 28th to 29th, 1981. She was 43 years old. She was on a boat called the Splendor with her husband, Robert Wagner, and her Brainstorm co-star, Christopher Walken. The original investigation ruled it accidental. Case closed. In 2011, the boat's captain, Dennis Davern, came forward. He said he had not told investigators everything in 1981. There had been an argument on the boat between Wood and Wagner. He had heard things that night he had not reported. The coroner amended her death certificate in 2012. Cause of death changed from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. Manner of death changed from accident to undetermined. In 2018, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department named Robert Wagner, a person of interest in the investigation. The case is still open. Natalie Wood's body was found the following morning wearing a flannel nightgown and a down jacket. She was not dressed to go anywhere. There were bruises on her body inconsistent with simply falling off a boat. 43 years. The manner of her death is still officially undetermined. Robert Wagner has not been charged with anything. He's a person of interest in the investigation into his wife's death. Both of those things are true simultaneously. Roman Polanski pled guilty in 1977 to unlawful sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old girl. He pled guilty. Before sentencing, he fled the United States. He has lived in Europe since then, in countries whose extradition arrangements have made his return to face sentencing effectively impossible. And in 2003, when he won the Academy Award for Best Director for The Pianist, the audience at the Kodak Theater in Los Angeles gave him a standing ovation. I've been thinking about that standing ovation for a long time, about what it says about an industry's capacity for collective self-deception, about the specific alchemy that transforms a man who pled guilty to the sexual assault of a 13-year-old child into a recipient of industry celebration 25 years later. The answer, I think, is simpler and more depressing than any sophisticated analysis can capture. The people in that room valued his films more than they valued the 13-year-old girl. They valued what he had made more than they valued what he had done. And they expressed that valuation publicly, in a room full of cameras, without apparent discomfort. The Academy expelled him from membership in 2018. The vote was not unanimous. He has continued making films. The woman he assaulted, Samantha Geimer, has spoken publicly many times. She has said she does not want further legal proceedings. Her position deserves respect and is not the subject of this section. The subject of this section is what Hollywood decided to do with the information that one of its celebrated directors had pled guilty to the sexual assault of a child. What it decided was to keep working with him, to keep honoring him, and to stand and applaud when his name was announced in a room he could not enter because he was a fugitive. That is the last secret on this list. And unlike some of the others, it was never really buried. It was hidden in plain sight, which is a different and in some ways more disturbing thing. 8 scandals, 8 cases, and running through all of them. The same logic. The machinery of Hollywood was extraordinarily good at producing 2 things: films and the management of information about the people who made those films. The second skill was, in some ways, more impressive than the first. Fatty Arbuckle was acquitted by a jury that issued a written statement calling his prosecution unjust. It didn't matter. The studio system had already decided what the story was going to be. Thomas Ince may have been shot on a yacht by the most powerful media mogul in America. We will probably never know for certain, because the people who were there made sure of that. Paul Byrne's death was used to publicly humiliate Jean Harlow, who had no power to stop it and who died 5 years later. Louis B. Mayer ran a studio in which the abuse of power was structural and systematic, and which the industry protected because the industry was invested in what the studio produced. Hedy Lamarr invented the technological foundation of modern wireless communication. Hollywood promoted her as the most beautiful woman in the world and asked nothing more of her. Gene Seberg was destroyed by a government operation documented in the FBI's own files. The intended outcome was described in those files as embarrassment. Natalie Wood drowned under circumstances that are still officially undetermined and that remain an open investigation. Roman Polanski pled guilty and received a standing ovation. You grew up watching the films these people made. You deserve to know the full story of the industry that made them. Now you do.